Good morning, everyone. Let the record show that we have a quorum. And before we move into the actual calling of the witnesses, I need to clear up and get the committee's recommendation on one little administrative matter. It seems that the rules of the Legislative Assembly, when members of the committee request copies of the Hansard in order to facilitate them questioning for the witnesses, that there seems to be an inordinate process that we have to go through, i.e. it has to be approved by the Speaker, and then it's also apparently has to be approved by the Chairman. I would like the committee to consider, and if they agree with me, so recommend, that I write a letter to the clerk and the Speaker and ask that in the future, whenever a member of the committee, the Public Accounts Committee, request a copy of the Hansard, that it be given forthwith and not delayed seeking permission. So can I have a motion, and then I will write the letter based on. Make a note of that. Seconder. All those in favor. All those in favor. Aye. But this is what doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's one of these antiquated rules that has existed way back when the Public Accounts Committee only and Parliament only met in secret, right? Particularly when we have the Hansards of what is a public session, restrictions on the Hansard should not apply. So I'll write the letter asking the Speaker to do that.
Question, Mr. Chairman. Am I to understand that in the past, no member of the PAC has never asked for this before?
No, they did, but they've asked and they've had to wait. I've had to wait as chairman to get it approved before I could get copies of it myself.
How long it's been like this forever and a day?
Yeah. It's one of those, like I say, what I regard as antiquated rules that needs to be. Yeah, when I needed the evidence against the chief officer from the official Hansard, it took almost a week, 10 days to get it for the same purposes because it had to be approved along the way. And I just think that particularly if something is being held in camera, you can see that there would be some controls and some restrictions on who have access. But even then, a committee member should not be denied access, because this happens to be a rule that's been here from whenever. So, on the committee's advice, I will write to the Speaker and ask that when it comes to the Public Accounts Committee, that when members in particular request copies of the Hansard in order to prepare for the next witness, that it be given forthwith. So thank you all very much for that. We can now bring in the witness, please.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give to this honorable Legislative Assembly shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You write a form, or you
I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give this Honorable LA Legislative Assembly shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Good morning, Mr. Strand. Thanks for coming. You know the rules. The first question you go to answer, either of you, just give your full name and your position so it'll appear in the records.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This morning we're dealing with the report by the Auditor General on the government's use of consultants and temporary staff. And I think the committee wants to ask you some questions on the consultant side of it. Ready, Chris?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you, to the witness or the witnesses. First, I'd like to thank the Chief Officer from reading the report. I understand that your ministry is actually one of the better performing ones. And while there's still areas for improvement, nonetheless, I mean, this is what we're here for. So I think it's important that the public understands that, I mean, first, that there will always be a need for consultants whenever we don't have the requisite skills within the civil service. And what we need to just make sure that there is some level of comfort with regards to the process, to always making sure that one is open and transparent and it also represents value for money. So with that said, I think it's important for us to set the stage that, you know, people sometimes have a belief that when people come before the PSC, it is always something negative. In this case, it's more on the positive side. And I believe that maybe with some of the questions that we'll be asking today, it will at least give the Chief Officer and his team an opportunity to even enlighten some of his other colleagues in terms of maybe some of the practices that they're doing and how best we can improve it. One of the things in terms of the first question is that we noticed from the Auditor General's report that there were some contracts where a business case wasn't done. Now, within the manual, from what I understand, there was no requirement for a business case to be done, but we understand in some cases because most of it was on the marketing side, and I think it'd be self-explanatory, but at a minimum, just give the Chief Officer and his team an opportunity to explain or just to update the committee and the public as to why they believe that in some cases a business case would not be justified for some of the contracts. Thank you.
Good morning. Strand Borden, Chief Officer in the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. We'd like to thank the member for the question. And he's absolutely right. So when the ministry looks at its work, the first priority is good governance. So all our priorities, that's number one. So that's how you craft this kind of response from the Auditor General. If you have good governance as the number one priority, you get these kinds of feedback and results. To your question, sir, on the consultants. So the Department of Tourism is a marketing and advertising machine that I'm very proud to be a part of and lead. Now, to have that kind of specialized skills in the department, as civil servants, it just wouldn't be practical, wouldn't be possible. But we place those individuals and agencies around the world, US, UK, and Canada, our core markets, in order to have the best bang for our buck, to use that terminology. So that has been proven, has been tested, and has worked for a number of years. And we continue to rely on that kind of model to get the brand Cayman out there and keep that at a standard where we can continue to attract the visitors that we do year round.
To you, Mr. Chairman,
You're the chairman.
set an example. You're all awake. That's good. Okay. Mr. Dixon, you didn't notice that I made an error there? Yeah, okay. while we agree that in terms of developing a staffing core, can you confirm that when you're dealing with these kind of specialized contracts, there's some continuity and some commonality in the person in the ministry or the Department of Tourism that deals with these contracts, so that at least there's that level of expertise that is developed within the organization, and therefore it would be more difficult for one of these specialized companies to pull a coup, so to speak. In other words, make a recommendation that might not achieve the results.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, absolutely. These contracts, whether they're public relations, marketing, media purchasing, are monitored heavily by the marketing and promotion section of the Department of Tourism. So you have a deputy director there. You have we actually employed now an operations administrator that just deals with the contracts and the contract management of them, because there's actually, sorry to say, but it's so many of them. So we needed that special staff position to monitor those contracts.
And they are obviously involved in the procurement process.
Absolutely, sir.
Right.
I can also say that my Chief Financial Officer, Mrs. Nika Webster, who's also here with me, is also involved in that procurement process from the ministry level as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I just want to put out there also for the record is that even though they weren't business cases for some of the contracts, that the majority of them were all open, competitive process from that standpoint. So we just want to make sure that no one gets the wrong impression. Just out of curiosity, can you just kind of walk us through in terms of when you guys have an idea, in terms of when you want to achieve a particular objective, what's the steps you would follow, or the decision-making tree that you would use to arrive at going out to, I guess, engage a consultant, and then what the end product would look like in terms of the award and then everything else, and then the follow-through. Just a kind of idea in terms of the process. Because like I said, you guys are actually doing it right, so we want everyone to kind of understand what it is that you're doing, with the hopes that others who are listening can follow what you guys are doing also.
Thank you for the member for the question. So to the member's point, once an initiative is identified, the proper scoping of that initiative, that project is done first, obviously. Then the procurement documents, tender documents are drafted in keeping with the level that it would be. So obviously we all know $50,000 is the limit for public tender. If it has to be advertised, it is advertised for a suitable period of time. The bids that come in, depending whether it's 50,000 or over 250,000 with Central Tenders Committee, they're evaluated for, again, value for money and quality. So it's not just the cheapest bid that always wins the process. It has to be, again, best value for money. So quality for the bid. Then that, depending on the scale, again, goes back either to the Departmental Tenders Committee or the Central Tenders Committee. During that time, what we also do is actually, say for instance, if it's a public relations contract, creative contract, media buying contract, we actually interview each bidder in order to get that face-to-face contact, because obviously tourism and branding is a very face-to-face issue that we're trying to establish. So we want to see the individuals that are actually going to market our brand Cayman, and that has been proven to be very, very useful. And again, my chief officer, actually chief financial officer, takes part in that. The award is done after evaluation, and all parties are notified. So it's not a complicated process, because one thing I think that we have going for us is very much laid out in the public management finance law, now the procurement law as of May 1st. So the policies underneath that now underpin it. You need to have those in place. As you rightly said, sir, we didn't have defined business cases for all initiatives, projects, and events that we would do. We've now added that to our policy. We'll be updating it further to encapsulate, obviously, the procurement law that is now in effect as again of May 1st. So all that is ongoing. But it's about value for money. At the end of the day, it's about open, transparent, and a competitive process. So that those three things always have to be maintained. Once, and again, is to my mind anyway, is a simple thing that you want to prove that it's fair. Everybody had a level playing field to go through, and best value for money is what you look for and what you got out of the process.
One of the things I was pleased to see in the Auditor General's report is that, and you kind of missed it, which was actually a feather in the cap, is that you guys actually do a post-analysis once a contract is finished to ensure that the objectives are met. That's actually an added plus. Just out of curiosity, even though you missed it, what does that process normally entails in terms of when you're doing that kind of analysis? What is it that you'll be looking for?
Thank you for the question, member. So that process is largely done at a departmental level, which is why you saw me consult the CFO. But it's engagement with the parties, a lot of communication, a lot of meetings to ensure that we again got value for money, and the process was open and transparent. So that is a post analysis, as you said, to ensure once again communication and value for money with the person that we contracted with. And we document that entire process as well for submission.
No problem. Thank you much. Just out of curiosity, just in the same thread, in terms of the port, I know there were several consultants or ongoing consultants that's using with regards to the port. Can you pretty much provide us an update in terms of where we are with those I guess, business case, I guess would be in that case in terms of the business case? I'm assuming there's a business case for that one because of the size.
Thank you, member. Yes, sir, that's correct. So in keeping with, again, the framework for fiscal responsibility in the public management and finance law, it calls for independent financial, accounting, and technical advice. So that's where the business case lies under the financial advice in terms of getting a project assessed in terms of it being commercially viable. So the technical part is obviously, for instance, if things like the environmental impact assessment, et cetera, are required, that was also done. In terms of where we are now, we actually have a consultant, KPMG, who's actually been contracted to guide us through and advise us on the actual procurement. So we've done the business case, the outline business case, and we've completed the environmental impact assessment, and Cabinet has given us the go-ahead to go through procurement, and we're being guided through that as well, again, by KPMG, an independent advisor in terms of procurement as per the public management and finance law.
Out of curiosity, the process, I mean, looking back at the public authorities law and even the PMFL, is this being driven by the port? Is it being driven by the ministry, or is it being driven by both groups together?
Thank you for the question, member. It's being driven by a project steering committee that consists of the ministry and the port. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that the EIA has been completed. Just lead me if I'm going wrong. My understanding that the process that is being followed in the procurement to do the cruise piers is that you have invited people to design, finance, build, and maintain. Does that mean that each person is doing their own design? Or does the government have a design that each person has accepted?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. So we have put together a conceptual design that actually, additional to that, are standards and specifications that design has to meet. So, for instance, the length and width of the pier have been stated by the government, by the project steering committee, that can't be varied. So we've set the specifications and the standards based on engineering and based on the users, the cruise lines, and we put that in that would inform obviously cost, right? And they can now is more, I guess, on the upland section of it, how they would lay that out to best manage the passengers coming ashore. But the actual piers themselves, in terms of length, width, number of piles, we've actually specified that in terms of our engineering advice and our users, the cruise lines.
And there's also my understanding from information in the public that this later design moves the piers into deeper water to reduce the impact on dredging. Has the EIA taken that into consideration, and is there going to be an update EIA done on what the final design that is accepted by government?
So, Mr. Chairman, what we've done, we've had that, the first design that the EIA was done again on best value for money. So the environmental impact wasn't the top priority on that. It was best value for money. So what we've done now is say, if we can lengthen the piers to the extent that we're able to into deeper water, because obviously we have a drop off that we can't go beyond, that would then happen, and that would reduce the dredge. So you can imagine a pocket that would have to come out, that has now been taken further out, because obviously the closer you come in, the shallower you are. You would need to dredge more. That has now been pushed out in terms of what has to be dredged, so that has been lessened. To your point on the final design, that will need to be updated in the EIA will then need to be updated based on the final design. So that would have to be done by the chosen preferred bidder.
They will do an EIA, or the persons who did the original EIA will update their EIA?
The individuals identified will have to update the EIA.
You've covered most of it, Mr. Chairman, but through you, is it safe to have the people who are going to build this do the EIA? Shouldn't it be us? Because they're only interested in building the project. We have to protect 7 Mile Beach. Because we've already seen when the Royal Watler Pier was built, what happened on Boggy Sand Road. All that evidence is right there for everyone to see. The erosion, everything. Is it safe, in your professional opinion, to have those that are going to build it? Because they're not going to be interested in what's happened. They just want to make the money off of building the pier.
Thank the member for the question. So the EIA will only be updated. It won't be changed. So any impact the mandate is to be lessened. So again, by moving the piers out, you would only then redo the wave actions and so forth that was in the original EIA. So that will all be lessened, because again, you're moving the dredging offshore, further offshore, to a lesser degree.
There's some inherent risk in moving it offshore, that you can have more impact on currents than the near shore. Even though there may be less dredging, the wave action is going to be greater, and the effects of coastal currents are going to be much more impactful on what dredging is done.
Mr. Chairman, I think that would have to come out of this study, so I couldn't necessarily speak to that.
Following on the Auditor General, you said earlier, I think, just to confirm, that you're now in the process of updating your procurement policies to fall in line with the procurement law.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman. So the update for that was based on the Auditor General's report was relatively a simple thing to do, which we've done. But to bring it in line now with the procurement law, it's going to take a little time. So we haven't completed that as yet, but we're working on it. So to say we have to update the policy is one thing, but we absolutely have to be in compliance with the law. So bring in the policy in times with the law. The law would trump the policy anyway. So we want to have, again, best practice, good governance, that our policies in line with the law. But obviously now with the enactment of May 1st, the law would trump any policy that we have.
But I'm curious because the procurement law was passed into law on the 2nd of December 2016. And here we are, May, and it was specifically, they include this clause in the bill: the law may be cited as a procurement law on Section 2. The law shall come into force on such date as may be appointed by the Cabinet, and different dates may be appointed for different provisions of this law in relation to different matters. We parliamentarians are made to believe that the reason for Section 2 is to allow the government agencies to fall in line with the expectations of the law before it comes into effect, not for the law to come into effect and the agencies, the various agencies in government, have not complied or in a position to comply with the law on implementation. It seems that, as you see in other references in the media, that people are complaining that they haven't received training under the procurement law as part of their reasons for not obeying the law. So can you explain to me what was the delay, and why are you now working on making sure that your policies agree with this law after it has come into effect?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, as maybe I didn't explain it enough, but the policy, bringing that in line is good governance, is best practice with the law. But we wouldn't necessarily look to our policy if that isn't yet in line with the law. We were, yes, I'll put my hand up and say we haven't got it done before the enactment date. We had a few audits going on, and may took a little time, but we will get it done. But the point to be taken away is that we will comply with the procurement law and any of its provisions that are now in full force.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, through you, I'm sure the public is interested in knowing. We've heard you use the word good governance quite a few times since you've been speaking. How much involved is the ministry with the port, all that's in the headlines and what's been going on? How involved is the ministry?
Thank you for the question. Member, could you be a little bit more specific? Sorry.
Is the ministry involved in anything to do with the port? We've seen what's been happening in the newspaper, 61-page report, and you hear good governance over and over. Was the ministry involved in this? How did they know about it? Just whatever.
Thank the member for the question. So the matter that is now in the media in relation to the Port Authority was first brought up to me by the Office of the Auditor General. I then, along with the Auditor General, spoke with the board of the Port Authority. They were alerted, and we started meeting on it. The Office of the Auditor General hadn't yet completed all of their investigation, which, by the way, how it came about was through their 16-17 audit. I see the Auditor General nodding, and she brought that information to me as Chief Officer and a board member, and it progressed. It progressed from there, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, first I think, just for the record, I understand that the board took some level of action where management was concerned. I think that's what the media reported. And firstly, I think that's commendable in terms of the board actually doing something. I wish that we had more government boards that would actually do something with some of the managers. I can think of the HSA board to begin with. I think some of them should be fired, but that's a different, or in this case, removed. One of the things that jumped out, and this is my question to the witness, we have a tendency in Cayman to, I guess, and I'm just trying to phrase it the right way, I don't want to come out the wrong way, where we always have a tendency for looking for the boogeyman, looking for the duppy. You know, people will say stuff sometime and they're always looking, you hear all kind of crazy theories sometimes. And one of the things old people will tell you that even a broken clock is right twice a day. And one of the things that someone messaged me the other day, and it kind of gave me food for thought, because I understand that this is something that's been around for quite some time, and they're like, Chris, why is this just coming out now? And according to some, it's a situation where, one, they want to remove the port director, because they want to shift someone from planning to the port director, to bring in someone from planning, because some people projects aren't moved. They say some people say dark projects aren't being moved fast enough. What I just wanted to make sure, and I realize a lot of movements of a lot of different parts, but this is one of the things that it's out there in the public domain, that there are a lot of movements going on to get people moving in different places. I just want assurances, or at least the public, I think, would like some assurances, especially when you factor in the public authorities law, the PMFA law, and even and the role of the chief officer and everyone else with it, that there is no boogeyman out there in this situation trying to. The look on your face pretty much says, like, what the hell is he talking about? Which is good, and that's what I really wanted, was to see the look on your face to say, not like that is coming. No, because when someone says to me, Chris, they want to get rid of the port director, they want to move the guy from planning to port, and then they want to bring some lady back from DART to planning because DART project ain't moving. It kind of jumps, so you kind of, wait a minute, that's a lot of moving parts to get one thing done. So the look on your face pretty much confirmed that you're probably just hearing this for the first time too. So no question, Mr. Chairman, the look on the chief officer's face pretty much just said, okay, that's news to me also.
Maybe getting a Grammy.
Well,
I will add this old adage to it: where there's that much smoke, has be some fire.
Mr. Chairman, to take away all ambiguity, I'll answer the question, and to the member's point, what he expressed this morning, I've just heard firsthand from him. I've never heard anything like that prior.
Like I said, the look on your face, sometimes you hear it from one person, then you hear from another person, and then you start hearing it. I mean, even Bernie himself, I admit it, you hear it as much. And I'm like, that's a lot of trouble to move one person to bring in another person just so to get stuff moving. So I just wanted to make sure, and like I said, the look on your face pretty much, it solved it ended my curiosity too after a while, and I wasn't going to pass up an opportunity to ask you.
The things that the Office of the Auditor General was concerned about, but I noticed that you say you're doing it, is that the Portfolio of Legal Affairs has sight and sign off on all of these consultant contracts. And you say you're doing it now. And then you also go on to say that your contracts are also reviewed by external lawyers who are subject matter experts hired by the ministry and department. Are those lawyers vetted by the legal department, or is that just a action taken by the ministry and the department on its own?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. That is taken by the ministry and departments on its own. Those law firms are actually in offshore in the US, UK, Canada, depending on where we need the legal advice. And we go through open, transparent, competitive tender process for those as well.
No, I just want to go back on record again, Mr. Chairman, and thank the chief officer for the work that they're doing, especially on the tourism side. I think the numbers speak for themselves. I think there's a solid team. The performance is there, and I just want to at least say, on behalf of the people of Barton West that I represent, thanks for the work that you're doing. One of the things I do hope that you guys consider in terms of business case is look at what Antigua is doing. I like the fact that they have 8 ports around the island, and everyone have an opportunity to get a piece of the tourism pie. as opposed to everything being concentrated in Georgetown. So that's one of the things that we really like to see, because if you look at it right now, from what I understand, in terms of the numbers that we'll need at the port to break even, we're going to need more attractions for more people. And with the limited time that people still have in port, it's best if we can offer more around the island as opposed to within a concentrated area. With Royal Palms, where a lot of tourists goes, with a hotel being built there, that's a good part. That's a lost activity that cruise tourism will have. So the question is now, where will those, well, not a question for the PSC, but to consider what will happen to those people. Because there's a good chunk that actually go to visit the Royal Palm property that won't be available in the next few years. Where then will they go? And the last thing, I mean, where some people are concerned is that would be pushing more people to the public beach. And again, that's limited space for most locals. So if we can find a way in which to spread more activities around the island and get more people to the Eastern District, I think that would be something to consider. But outside of that, I think the numbers speak for themselves. I know we got a good uplift from the unfortunate events in the Eastern Caribbean while they're still recovering. So that's pretty good. It shows that there's confidence in the Cayman as a destination for many people. But ultimately, just keep up the good work. I mean, just want to pass it on to your team.
Thank the member for the comment. I have the privilege of leading an incredible team at the Department of Tourism. The hardest job I think I have is trying to keep up with them, because they're always working, they're always coming up with new innovative ideas, which is what keeps brand Cayman on the cutting edge and brings 418,000 stayover arrivals in 2017 and on pace to do incredible numbers again in 2018. So thank you for the comment. I'll definitely pass that on to them.
Mr. Chairman, through you. Since the Alexandria in the BRAC closed down, do we have any more rooms in the BRAC?
I'd like to thank the member for the question. So what is happening now in Cayman Brac is that Airbnb is opening up an entirely new niche market in Cayman Brac. So villas, condos have seen an uptick in Cayman Brac, and we're looking forward to increasing that. We encourage any developers, investors that are looking to local persons to build rooms in Cayman Brac. It's desperately needed. So we're always in consultation with those. Anybody that wants to come, and obviously having the district administration in Cayman Brac as well, we entertain anyone that wants to come and invest, especially hotel rooms in Cayman Brac.
Okay, sir, Mr. Chairman, through you. So in other words, you didn't answer me, but there are no more rooms. So all they're doing in the BRAC is just trading condos into Airbnb, whatever you call them, but there are no more new rooms in the BRAC. It's the same buildings being retrofitted to be something else, but there's no more rooms. There haven't been no new establishments built in the last 2 years or so. Any new hotels, any new condos?
Thank you, member, for the comment and question. Again, not that I'm aware of, sir. So, I mean, we are aware that there's interest, that people are looking at purchasing property and developing rooms, but no new bricks in the ground. No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, through you. How close does the Department of Tourism and Cayman Airways work together?
Thank you for the question, member. So the Cayman Airways and the Department of Tourism work very closely together. The director actually has an ex officio seat on Cayman Airways board, just like myself as chief officer.
We've gone, the flights have been cut drastically. Are you aware of this with Cayman Airways? For example, one flight goes up in the morning, one comes down in the evening most days. There's no more midday flight or nothing like that. Are you aware of this as the chief officer for this ministry?
As far as I'm aware, so that's not every day.
No. Almost every day. I mean, of course, you're not going to do it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But Monday through Thursday, almost there's no midday flight anymore. You go up in the morning and it comes back in the evening. What is being done? And the flight loads. Just recently, 2 flights to the BRAC, 13 people going, 9 people coming. 2 days after that, 16 people up, 10 people down. Now, I know it can be spun. I've heard people sit here and try to spin all kinds of things on those type of loads. What is being done about growing the routes for Cayman Airways? Because yes, it's good to do all this stuff, but when we're not doing things for our airline to benefit, just so we can stop having to give them subsidies to the airline. What is being done about the marketing of our airline and the prices and so forth? Because it's obviously the board is making decisions that is hurting us because the airline is hurting. And I don't know how people can't see it, but if you talk to the staff that are not scared, if you pay attention, stand up and look at who's coming off the planes, go and stand and look, something is wrong. Does Cayman Airways marketing need help from the Department of Tourism Marketing, which I agree is pretty good? I've worked with them, but does the marketing at Cayman Airways need help? Can you prop them up to help with the Department of Tourism? Is that possible?
Thank the member for the question. So as I said, Department of Tourism and Cayman Airways do work very closely together. As the member is aware, we now have the Saab 340B, 2 aircrafts going into Cayman Brac, so we have put the airlift in there. In terms of a capacity perspective, we have actually hired a director of North American sales for Cayman Airways. That individual was actually the aviation specialist, a young Caymanian with the Department of Tourism that resides in the U.S. So that individual now works for Cayman Airways and works very well, obviously, with her former department, the Department of Tourism. So I would think, sir, that yes, they do work very well together with the aim of supporting our national airline.
Mr. Chairman, through you, how long has the Saabs been here now? Mr. Chairman, through you, just to let you know, we still got 4 or 5 contracted captains on the Saabs. The Saabs are costing us almost $1 million, between the 2 of them and staff and all kinds of stuff, if not over $500,000 a month. The time will come and it will have to be justified. The time will come. Because that was my very first question on there are more loads, if there are more hotel rooms in the BRAC, because there's not. But yet we've increased all this money flying planes into the BRAC, all this money being spent monthly, and people are talking about Cayman Airways losing money, and the main place is losing is the BRAC. But these decisions are not yours. These are made by the board, and the CEO has to carry out what the board tells them to carry. I'm pretty sure he and the deputy CEO. But in your opinion, are we getting our money's worth?
Thank the member for the question. So the cry that we heard from as the minister responsible for Cayman Brac, Little Cayman, and tourism was that it was lacking airlift into Cayman Brac. So we adjusted and put in the 34-seater Saab to meet that demand. Now, when we speak to investors and developers that are thinking of putting rooms, especially in Cayman Brac, we can say that, listen, now we have the Saab servicing the island.
Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I know we're looking at something different, but I just want to put something out there also. First, like with anything, there has got to be an agreed approach. I know that the ministry, based on the visits that they made to the districts, are pretty much at this point working to update the national tourism plan in terms of where the country is going in what direction. And I would encourage members of the public to at least give some input into the development of the plan and look out for whenever they're coming back next into their district to add their 2 cents. I think it's also important to recognize, and I'm just going to put it out there, it's going to always be a challenge for Cayman Airways to some extent. I know this has been one of the political footballs from first time it started. But at the end of the day, I think the question that the public needs to answer, first of all, is what is Cayman Airways' purpose? I think it was about last month, I think the minister was quoted in one local newspaper saying that his objective isn't, Cayman Airways' objective isn't to make a profit, but rather to provide a service. And one of the things that I would like personally is to see the BRAC develop to the point where it's not constantly being, to quote unquote, subsidized by people in Grand Cayman. And I think people in Grand Cayman at some point need to also understand, if you look at the business people that have contributed well to Grand Cayman, they're actually from the BRAC. So I don't want to be left as if though the BRAC is being treated as if though it's a separate country. It is just another district that just happens to not be attached to Grand Cayman to some extent. And it'd be no different from Eastern, North Side, or anywhere else from that standpoint. So we're still all Caymanians to some extent, just that the BRAC has a different geographical challenges to it. We, naturally, like with anything, would expect transportation to be provided. If the BRAC was attached to Grand Cayman, we'd have buses running to it. It's not attached, so we'd have to go there by boat or by air. But either way, it's still a service that has to be done. It will never ever be profitable enough from an airline standpoint, if you look at it in terms of where it's at. But nonetheless, I think what's important is that, one, the ministry finalizes the National Tourism Plan, and then two, once that plan is completed, we'll have an idea in terms of what we'd expect from Cayman Airways fully, also what we'd expect from the port, and pretty much what we'd expect from just about every stakeholder, from hoteliers, condos, owners, everything else. So I think at the end of the day, we always have to look at tourism from a big picture view as opposed to a small view. Our financial services is already under attack, and if you look at the growth in tourism over the last 5 to 7 years, in the next 5 to 7 years, it is actually on par to surpass the financial services if it continues on the path that it is in terms of contributions to GDP. So it is one of the areas where we have to recognize that it is still future opportunities for growth. It is still right now the largest employer of most Caymanian businesses if we look at the public transport system and the amount of people it actually employs. You know what I mean? So I think in all of that, to say to the chief officer is that, one, I know the ministry is driving it towards the National Tourism Plan. That needs to be updated as quickly as possible. And then two, more importantly, the public gets involved in terms of what the vision is or where we're going for tourism. Because Cayman Airways will be a subset of whatever that plan is, but it will not be the drive of that plan. And I think it is the lack of having that cohesive plan why there are so many different questions. And I think once we put the big picture and the big vision together, then I think people can see where everything else fits. But as it stands right now, without that plan, we will continue to have the challenges with Cayman Airways, or people have the challenges with the cruise port. And I think that is really what is driving this, is the lack of the clear vision or a clear plan. So I think once we get that done, it should hopefully alleviate a lot of the challenges and questions that people from the public have.
Thank the member for the comment. So the member is exactly right. The plan is now being updated with the feedback we got from each district. So we went to, as you've said, sir, every district went to all 3 islands and got that feedback. It's now being updated, and then it'll go back out again for the public to view. Now that is envisioned to be by electronic means, but we would envision we would have hard copies, of course, and publicized quite well to show the revised plan with the public feedback.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Borden, for coming. And I guess we'll see you in a couple of months when we're doing your audited accounts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to thank the offices of the Auditor General for working so well with us. It's a breath of fresh air to know the performance audits that are coming up and not be told halfway through that you're being audited in this subject area. And, we've already written half the report, and it's it's bad, and we're going to table it in the next couple of months. So I really applaud the approach taken by the Auditor General and her good office, and I look forward to that continuing, sir.
We'll take a break, and Mr. Basquio is due at 11:30. So